and welcome back to Full Circle Angling. Today we are out on the rocks, very local to home, not far from home at all today, probably only about 10-15 minutes in the car. Right on the border between North Tyneside and Northumberland. We're rock fishing, heavy ground fishing. Got a massive tide today. It's about 0.4 on the River Tyne scale. So it's a huge ebb, low water's at 1:30, it's just gone 12 o'clock now. I've already had one cast, little rattle, missed it. Might have been a small wrasse or maybe a lobster. And the bait I'm using today is a mixture of frozen peeler crab, because I just haven't had time with work recently to get down to me traps, and carp wings. Gear wise, we've got the trusty Daiwa Saltist 18 35H, that's loaded with 40-pound trilene. Rod is a Ziplex Dymic HST Evo, which is actually a little bit of a custom rod because I asked Lee at Ziplex to make this for us. It's 1310, the standard Evo is 13.6, and it's also got the end of the tip is about, you can never tell because they're handmade rods, but it's a bit stiffer. It could be 5%, could be 20%. They always say the Evos are 20% stiffer, but you never know. It's not that accurate with them being handmade. It's not like Century where they're made in a factory. So it's a little bit stiffer. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of you probably know, we're not going to be able to get new Ziplex rods anymore because they've shut up shop, stopped making rods, stopped trading after all these years, which is a real shame to see a good British company that's well regarded and been around for so long to cease trading. But it's the way it is, unfortunately. Nothing stays the same forever. So that's the setup. As I say, we're just fishing into really, really thick, heavy duty kelp rock. On the big tide days like this, the water, the tide just goes so far out, you're just basically looking for the deeper holes and plopping into them really. That's the setup. Let's hope we can come back with a fish. Rig's just the usual standard 2.5, 3 foot straight through pulley. I just use one section of line, crimp, bead, and attached on the other end. This happens to have a splashdown. I sometimes use imps. Little rotter, 5-6 inches, 20-pound mono. That's just a 6-ounce plain sinker. You can use grippers. Oh, just getting a knock there. You can use grippers. Theory being that they'll not roll into crevices and stuff. I personally, for this sort, find plain sinkers easier to pull through kelp. Personal preference, that's all it is. We've definitely just had a knock there, so let's see if we can get a fish in. Yep, getting a decent bite there. Of course, it could be a lobster, which can, oh yeah, I've definitely just felt a bite there. Absolutely cracking day. The sun, just as I've turned the camera on, the sun's literally just come out. It was overcast before. Sunday the 17th of July, and they're predicting red hot temperatures the next couple of days. But even this morning when it was overcast, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, there's just been a cracking sea trout jumping out there. Hopefully you pick that up. Right, I'm going to wind down, take up the slack, strike. Oh, that is fast. That is very... Is absolutely solid. Well, unfortunately, on that last cast, a couple of nice bites, struck into it, lost the whole lot. But that is par for the course when you're fishing this sort of ground. You are going to lose gear. So you've just got to accept it, get on with it. Get your gear back out there. That is exactly where I want to be, just beyond that big kelp there out in front of us there. Now another little tip, because it's a clip down rig, I'm casting fairly hard without a bait clip on, or a bait stop, sorry, that bait will just fly up the line. Now, because I like to keep my components to a minimum for this sort of fishing, all I do is I get a length of 25-pound power gum, and I just tie that with a simple 3-turn grinner. 1, 2, just above the hook. Just pull it down, and you can just pull that really tight by hand, and straight away that's tight enough on that line just to stop your bait flying up the hook, and you can obviously push it down just to secure it. I intentionally leave the little tag ends on, and the reason being, if you imagine your bait sort of just coming up there, that'll just stop it. Oops, somebody's got a drone just above us. So that's just a little tip that I like to do. Well, I've had to put the hat on because the sun's coming out, and unfortunately the old head isn't as protected as what it used to be. The virtues of age, I think. One thing I do like to bring though when I'm fishing is a pair of my binoculars, so I can just have a neb on what's going on some of the other skiers. I can see somebody fishing about 2 or 3 skiers down from us. It was nice to have a little neb about. Hard graft at the minute, but you never know. Just got to keep fishing, persevere. I know there's plenty of fish out there because I was out on the boat on Wednesday night just off the back of St Mary's, which is the big lighthouse you can see behind us. And we're drifting from there's a strong westerly, drifting from kind of 25 feet out into about 40, and there was any amount of cod and wrasse and mackerel as well, so plenty out there. It's just a case of locating them, really.
Right, bring this one in. It's been out quite a while, hasn't had any interest whatsoever. Well, I say that, there's a tiny bit of weight on this, but I think we might have a very, very small codling on here. Must have been lying on because I certainly didn't see a bite. Yeah, we've got a small cod. Get them over those rocks and boulders. Out you come. Come on. Yeah, little ginger cod to save the blank. Very small example of a little kelpie, but you can't legislate for size, can you? That's what I always say anyway. It's the excuse. Little ginger cod taking on the colour of the kelp, straight on a crab bait. We'll get them into a rock pool and revive them. There is a fish out there after all. Yeah, definitely needs A little bit of an internal service, I think. But we've got it out where we want it. Good old Greg's out. Solid northeastern business. Churning out. Easy, tasty, good value, fast food. Cannot whack it. Eat far too much of it, of course. The cod out there don't seem to be eating far too much of my bait though, unfortunately. I always find it fascinating on these huge spring tides to kind of step down and get amongst the kelpy, jungly areas that you would ordinarily you wouldn't really get a chance to get in amongst and have a look. Because generally, I don't know if you can see these rocks here, and then where the just about there would be on your kind of, you know, typical medium, even bigger tides, but it's not until the tides really drop where you can just see these huge expanses of kelp. And if you look at the likes of this here, this is exactly what I'm talking about with heavy ground. You've just got these thick kelp heads, and then that just goes up. I mean, I'm standing up, I mean, I'm about 6 foot, and that's right up to my chest there, so you can just imagine when the tide's in, that's just kind of wafting around like that, and just attracting all sorts of life, crabs, lobsters at the bottom, and then your fish, cod, wrasse, pollock, even bass just swimming through, ambushing their prey. And you can see these are just attached to all sorts of boulders, big, small, the odd patch of sand, gravel. It's just a completely different world. Very heavy to fish into, but also a haven for life and food. Back on the other reel, because I've just lost a lot of line there as well. How was your... Right, come on, let's just see if there's anything hanging around in that gully. Get this one wound in. We might, if we're lucky, get another 2 casts before this tide starts to cut us off here. Very heavy, that ground out there. Oh, that's it. Almost last chance saloon. Let's see if we can get it back up that gully, coax cod or a wrasse out. Well, that's the end of the session. It's been a nice day, nice to get out, decent weather. It's always interesting seeing these marks when the tides, when a massive spring tide like it's been today. It's good for future reference if you plan on fishing the same mark again. You kind of know where the holes are and where the kelp beds are, so that's probably the main silver lining that I'm taking from today, because other than that one little ginger codling that I got earlier on, which saved the blank, it's been very tricky. Just another note to say thanks to anybody that's watching, subscribing, leaving a comment, giving it a thumbs up. It is really appreciated. So if you do watch the channel and you do enjoy what you see, please do subscribe, because it costs you nothing, but it helps the channel grow. So that's all from me. Hopefully you've seen a bit of some of the northeast heavy ground marks again. Until the next time, keep fishing, tight lines, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.